Hey dolls, welcome back to another Thriving Thursday live stream. I'm so excited because you guys know earlier this year I started doing interviews and series, and then I had to kind of take a step back due to life circumstances and so on and so forth. But we're back at it tonight. I have a guest. I'm super excited for her to come on here. You see her name in the title, Taylor Brianne Thornton. I'm going to introduce her shortly, but real quick, some quick housekeeping. So first and foremost, if you're here, whether it's live or on the replay, you already know what you have to do: like and share and subscribe in that order. So make sure you like this, make sure you share it with a friend or a couple friends in the group chat or what have you. And then make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you've been visiting, you've been watching videos and you haven't taken that step to go ahead and hit subscribe, then go ahead and commit. We love to have you here as part of the Del Doll family. Also, make sure you check the description box. All the typical announcements, newsletters, events for Single and Saved in the City, anything like that is down below. I will say really quickly though, if you are watching this before October 22nd and you're in the Atlanta area or nearby and you're a single woman, feel free to come to our meetup, our first in-person meetup for Single and Saved in the City on October 22nd. We're going to be at Andretti's Indoor Karting and Games. It is so much fun. If you love Dave & Buster's, I think you'll like this even more. They have bowling, they have virtual reality, laser tag, indoor go-karting. I mean, the whole shebang. The food's great. So bring a friend. Join us. Just RSVP on Eventbrite so I can have an idea for head count for seating. Just look up Kingdom Girls Sisterhood Social or check in the description box. Follow us on all our social media pages and you'll see all the information. So other than that, hey, Alicia, you know, I try with the hair and makeup from time to time. I try. But other than that, like I said, this is the beginning of our mini series for the month for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I also do want to go ahead and put a disclaimer out there that some of the things we talk about tonight and next week and the week after may be triggering. Every conversation isn't just centered around DV per se, but they do center around some form of abuse and DV in some way. So just make sure that if you are triggered, feel free to click off. It's okay. Like, I'm not trying to trigger anybody or hurt anybody or offend anybody. So that's fine if you need to click off. But I just want to put that out there because I do want to be sensitive to people's journeys and so on and so forth. So other than that, I am going to go ahead and introduce Taylor, and then we're going to bring her in. We're going to get started. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as well. We should have time, I think, for questions. So, or just, add your commentary because we like to have a discussion. This is like a sister circle, sister talk. So we don't want to talk at you. We want to talk with you. So let's go ahead. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Taylor. So Taylor and I have actually been connected for a while. I didn't even know that. I was like, I didn't know we were connected. But I have to thank my girl Yasmin. She's not able to join live tonight, but she has just been so instrumental in connected me to kingdom people and divine connections. And, of course, got to shout out big guy upstairs guy because it's all because of him, to his glory. So I'm so happy to have her here. She does work with young girls who have been victims of sexual abuse. She also has her own motivational speaking platform, and she just really does a lot of kingdom work. She's just like a Jane of all trades. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation tonight. I'm going to go ahead and bring her in. We're going to play a little icebreaker game, and then we're going to dive into the conversation. I'll let her do more of the introducing so I don't take that from her. So without further ado, let's go ahead and give Taylor a warm welcome. Hey.
Hi. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I can't say this enough. I know I've thanked you 100 times already, but thank you for being on here because it's not easy putting these together at the last minute. Okay.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on to share your platform, your amazing platform with you. I'm honored. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So tonight we're going to do a brief icebreaker game just so that we can woosah, relax, loosen up. And I want to play a quick game of this or that. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions and you can just tell me what comes to mind first. So first, this or that question: the beach or the mountains?
Definitely the beach.
Yeah.
Put me by some water and I'm great. You can leave me by water for weeks and I'll be okay. I promise.
That's how I am. But I do like the mountains too. I feel like I would want both, perfect blend. Maybe a West Coast beach, but right. So next, this or that question: Pepsi or Coke?
Ooh. Can you say neither? No, I'm kidding. I would probably have to take Pepsi over Coke.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like even with Pepsi and Coke, I mean, I'm not a dark soda drinker. I really don't drink soda a lot like that. But if I had to choose, I would choose Pepsi because I feel like Coke like makes my teeth gritty, and I don't like I don't know. I
That's
don't want
true.
my teeth to be gritty. So I would definitely choose Pepsi over Coke.
That is true. Yeah, I'm in Georgia, so you already know Coke is
Oh yeah,
lay of the land around here. So next, this or that question: fall or spring?
Okay. So I'm gonna have to go with fall simply because I love the fall fashion, like
Yes.
boots, jackets, sweater. Like, don't let it be a breeze outside because I'm like today. I live in Texas, so I pulled out the boots today, and it was cool this morning. And then it got up to like 100 degrees, so I
No.
to go back and change.
I know, like I'm originally from the DMV area, and so we really get 4 seasons for the most part. And now being in Georgia, I'm like, dang, like I really want to whip out my whole fall attire, and it's just not gonna work. It's just gonna be hot.
Not one or the other.
Okay. And fall is my favorite too because of the holidays, and there's a lot of birthdays in my family during fall.
I didn't even think about the holidays. Yeah, definitely fall.
Yep. So this is our time. This is our time right now. So next one, do you prefer ice cream or cake?
Ice cream all day, baby.
Yes.
Ice cream all day. I love me some ice cream. I love ice cream. Yes.
I love it. Yeah. What's your favorite flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough. I love cookie dough. Cookie dough has to be. I'm between cookie dough and cookies and cream, but definitely cookie dough.
Yeah, my OG favorite is cookies and cream, hands down. Like,
I feel
that. Okay, last one: Instagram or TikTok?
Probably Instagram.
No, it's like I have such a love-hate relationship with Instagram.
Yeah. I feel like Instagram is becoming TikTok. Like they're moving more towards like the whole reels and short videos. So it's not even about like, you know, your regular standard picture with the caption. Like they're like, forget that, we want the reels. So I feel like it's kind of turning into TikTok.
Yes.
But I don't know how to really use TikTok like that. So I just stick to one.
I'm on like every platform except for Twitter. And I miss the old IG, especially from like a business standpoint. It seems so much harder on IG now, but we're not gonna go there tonight. We're not gonna go there. So let's go ahead and transition into the questions. Before we dive into the actual discussion, go ahead and tell us like, who is Taylor? Where are you from? What do you do? All that good stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so that's a loaded question. I always have a hard time with this. I don't know why. So my name is Taylor Brianne Thornton. Most people call me Tay. If you know me, you're my friend. I call me Tay. But I'm originally from Racine, Wisconsin. And now I currently live in Dallas, Texas. I got married about a year and a half ago. And so my husband and I currently live in Dallas. I'm a wife. Aside from that, I love the Lord. I love him. I love him so much, y'all. I really do. And I'm just grateful that he has given me an opportunity to serve in doing things like what I'm doing now. So I'm a public speaker, motivational speaker. I am an author. I'm a creator. I am a businesswoman. I love encouraging by nature. That's something that comes natural to me. So I feel like I am an encourager. Like you're going to always find me encouraging you and uplifting you and just building you up. That is something that I love. I find pleasure in that. And I just look for any opportunity to encourage people and to serve the kingdom. I am the founder of Women Who Grow, which is a ministry that literally started out of my apartment about 2 years ago. God gave me this vision and he said, this is what I want you to do. And we just started with maybe like 12 women where we just came together and we just kind of dissected the word. And then from there, it grew to like over hundreds of women that we've now been able to reach. And that has happened over time, just sharing God's truth, sharing the word, really pushing transformation and wholeness and helping women to really understand who they are through the Word of God as our foundation, and creating intimate spaces where healing and transformation can take place. That is something that I really am passionate about, is bringing women together. I love to see women whole. I love to see women free. I love to see women transformed. I really have a heart for that. And so I love creating intimate spaces that allows women to really just thrive and transform and just become their true self, and who God has called them to be, and just teaching on the importance of identity. And then another thing that I feel like, my mandate is, I'm called to communicate the Word of God. I love to teach the Word. I love to speak the Word. I love to share encouragement through God's Word. And I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to just do what God has given me to do. Aside from that, I like to have fun. I like to kick it. I like to hang with family. I like to spend time with my husband. I like to hang out with friends. And you can catch me, I don't know, somewhere with my feet kicked up at home, sometimes watching a good movie.
I know
So that's what I love.
I love it. I love it. Like multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate. I think they call it, like just everything. I told y'all she's dynamic. Like she's got a lot going on, but all great things. And I love what you said about helping women be whole. So I know this is kind of like veering off a little bit, but it might tie in. How would you say your wholeness journey began? Like, did you have a period in your life where you were like completely, like, did you recognize I'm broken, I need to fix this? And then did that encourage you to say, okay, now I need to turn back and help others?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because I often think about that moment, and it happened it happened twice. So the first time that it happened, when I was in college, and I was just in a really low place. Like, I tell my testimony all the time that I used to struggle with alcohol a lot. And so I would drink a lot, and that was kind of like a coping mechanism. And I used that to suppress a lot of different emotions and feelings that I had, that I did not deal with, until I got to a point. And I used to like have these moments where I would pass out, just get drunk, and like just didn't care, putting myself in these situations where anything could have happened to me, but I was trying to satisfy my own self and my own desires, not really thinking about what my decisions could have done or how it could have affected me long term. And so I had gotten to a point, man, where it was my 21st birthday. And I feel like this is like my radical moment where I encountered the Lord like all over. Like and I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm a PK. So, and for those of you that don't know what a PK is, a preacher's kid. So my parents are pastors, my grandparents are pastors, my great grand. So it's like all in my bloodline. And even with that, I still had to go through a whole transformation process. Just because I grew up in that, I still had to encounter God for myself. And I feel like this was a moment where I encountered God for myself, my 21st birthday. And I remember just, I was drunk and I was at a friend's house, and I just remember I literally just fell on the floor on my face, and I began to cry out to God. And I said, Lord, if you take the desire out of my heart and the taste out of my mouth to drink again, I'll never be drawn to this again. And from that moment, I feel that God, he saved me. Like, he gave me another chance to restart my life over for the better. And that, for me, I felt like was the moment where I became introduced to purpose, where I became introduced to the version of Taylor, like not all the way there yet, but I made that step to start walking towards the version of Taylor that I was always supposed to be, the version of me that God saw when he created me before he formed me in my mother's womb. And so that was definitely a moment. And even through that, I still had some bumps and ups and downs, but that was a moment where I said, God, I'm ready to be used by you. I'm ready to do whatever you want me to do. I'm ready to let go of this thing, because I felt like that was the thing that I needed to let go of that was hindering me from moving forward. And so then fast forward to 2020, I went through a breakup, and this is where wholeness took place for me. And this was like that aha moment where I got to help women now, where God began to reveal to me what my call was. And I went through a breakup, and it was really tough for me because it was 3 years, and it was an unexpected breakup. And I did not know what to do. And I felt so devastated. I felt so heartbroken because I had invested so much of my time into this relationship. And it just was like, it happened so unexpectedly. And during that time, God separated me because he needed to get my attention. He needed me to really focus on who he wanted me to become. And while I was broken in that place, because I literally felt broken, I felt like I heard God tell me, he said, I had to break you because I'm calling you to the broken. I remember that statement. I had to break you because I'm calling you to the broken. So I had to first experience what it felt like to be broken so that I can minister to women, not from a place of just knowledge or intellect, but from a place of experience. So it's like, sis, I know what you're going through because I've been through that. I know what that feels like because I've been there. And so from that moment, that what I would say is the moment, on top of like everything that I had encountered up until that point, that was the moment that it was like, God, this is what I'm supposed to do. And from there, God began to open up doors for me to, speak to women, encourage women, because I was like, I would never do stuff like this. Like I was scared to talk in front of people. I told God I would never preach his word. I would never share the gospel. I would never do this. I remember, and it was almost like the very thing that I was running away from, God began to push me into it even more. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it happened for me.
Wow, that's so crazy. I mean, you said so many things in that segment where, one, I love what you said, how even though you came from a history of like pastors serving, like, because this is generational for you, you still had to encounter God for yourself. And I feel like sometimes, even just thinking about me as a mom, there's a lot of times where I'm like, God, like, just please, let what I'm doing translate to my son. And it's like, God's always reassuring me, like, he has to have his own journey. Of course, as a parent, it's your job to show them the way, but no matter what happens, God is still sovereign and God is still in control. And even though you went through those experiences, it still brought you to where you are today. Like, had you not gone through all of that, who knows if you would even be in this same position, empowering so many women and encouraging them. And then also what you said about the breakup, like that really awakening the brokenness within you. I definitely have had similar moments, and where I realized, honestly, even looking back on it, tying it to the topic for tonight, where that relationship had forms of abuse in it. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like, I don't know if that was your case too, but definitely where it's just like looking back, I'm like, wow, like I was actually dealing with abuse and I thought it was love, or I thought it was okay,
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
That's a lot. That's really good. So also, I know you had said that led you into the healing work that you do. And can you explain more of like, what was that turning point where you're like, okay, I'm going to help these young girls that particularly, as far as I know, they particularly deal with sexual assault, but if they deal with other stuff, then let us know too.
Yeah, so I come from a background, I worked in corporate for about 4.5 years. Straight out of college in 2017, I got a job working in healthcare, and that's like what I got my degree in. So I just knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. And so God blessed me with a job in healthcare, and I was like doing some traveling and things like that. But then like towards year 4, it was just like, or even year 3, I was just like, there has to be more. Like I felt like I was content in a way where like, God, I'm grateful that I have this job, but I felt like there was still a part of me that was unfulfilled, in a sense of like, I feel like I could be doing so much more in a field where I'm so passionate. And long story short, things begin to happen and I transitioned out of corporate, and I was very specific with God about what I wanted for my next to do, what I wanted to do next. And let me kind of go back. So I told you earlier that I love to talk. I love to, be in front of people. I love to just encourage and motivate and speak and help people and serve. Like, that's just something that I love to do. It's just, it's a passion of mine. And so I was very specific. I said, God, this is what I want. I want to work with a nonprofit where I can be like a contracted public speaker, and I can encourage people and like work with, kids or women or whatever, and just do what I love and be passionate about it. And I told God exactly what I wanted. And it was literally like he answered me, and it came across to me. I saw the opportunity, and and I hopped on it. And basically what I do now is I work through this in the school systems here in Texas. And it's not just for women, not just for girls, young girls, even though I do talk to, or it does cater to young girls, but also to men and children and women. But I work with this nonprofit here called the Women's Center, and their focus is like hope and education and awareness. And one of the programs under the education department is a prevention program against child sexual abuse and assault. And so what I do is I go into schools and I give presentations to kids from pre-K to 12th grade on prevention against sexual abuse, physical abuse, how to identify it, what are some risk factors, how to report if something like this is happening to them, what are some things to look out for, and then how to protect themselves or others from this happening again. And so I'm just giving these presentations based on their grade level of the difference between like a safe versus an unsafe touch. You know, what is sexual abuse? What is sexual assault? And so it's really cool because I'm talking all day. I get to work with kids. And then like if a kid reports to me, I get to report that information to like CPS and kind of get all in the weeds of like the investigation. Well, I don't get into the investigation process, but based on what it is, they can like investigate it. And so it really, I feel like it's ministry work, but it also, I look at it like I have an opportunity to save a life, even if I'm planting a seed, even if I'm just planting a seed. At least I've done something to make this child think that might be in the situation, something about what I'm going through is not right and I need to speak out. So that's what I do. And I love it. I love it. I've only been doing it for like 2 months now, but I absolutely love it. So
man, that sounds like just purpose wrapped all up and through that. And that's amazing. Like, congratulations on that. And congratulations on being a new wife too. I forgot to say that earlier.
Oh no, thank you.
Congratulations on both of those. But yeah, like I think that's so impactful because just realizing, you know, a lot of us don't understand the warning signs. Yeah. And I'm in my 30s now, and I'm just now realizing it in a lot of forms. And so I can't thank you enough, even for just doing that and doing that work and speaking into these, not like you said, not just women, but just people in general, and maybe particularly young women, and helping them with that. And so you did say that you help them identify different types of abuse and, you know, things of that nature. So what are like some common types of abuse, and what are 3 to 5 signs of those?
Yeah, so the main ones that we talk about, and again, it's based on like their grade level. Like, of course, we're not going to go into pre-K talking about rape. You know, that's just not a term that they may know it because they hear it from somewhere or in kindergarten, but we're going to use terms that are mature enough for them. So we're going to talk about safe touches versus an unsafe touch or confusing touch. And so mainly what we talk about is like physical touch. So anytime that a touch is unsafe, we consider that as like beatings. We consider that as like any bruises, cuts, broken bones, welts, spankings that hurt for a very long time. Like those will be things that will be considered an unsafe touch or physical child abuse. So physical abuse has to do with anything that's any kind of harm that's done physically to you in a physical form that leaves bruises, that leaves broken bones, that leaves cuts, that leaves marks. The hurt does it last for a very long time and doesn't go away pretty quickly. So that's what we would consider physical. So we deal with physical abuse. We also deal with sexual abuse. So of course, that's any, penetration with a body part or an object that's forced, any type of activity that's done in a sexual nature that's forced or without consent or without permission, that's considered sexual assault or sexual abuse. And so we get into that, like with high schoolers, we use more of those terms like sexual assault or rape. But like with middle school and elementary, we use like confusing touch. So confusing is, well, it may not necessarily hurt like a unsafe touch, but it also doesn't make me feel safe, like getting hugs and kisses and pats on the backs and back rubs. It's confusing because I don't know how it's supposed to feel. It doesn't feel right. So it's a confusing touch. And we always relate confusing touch with like sexual abuse or sexual assault. But like I said, as we get into like the older groups. So like high school or even like 8th grade, we'll mention more things of like, we'll use more terminology like rape. We'll use more terminology like the actual definitions of what sexual assault is in the state of Texas, or, you know, what sexual abuse is. And then we also talk about, so that would be like physical, sexual. We also talk about verbal and emotional, because those are just as powerful as well. You know, that's still abuse. So you can, because we talk about like, how can abuse happen without being physically touched, emotional or verbal, which is just as powerful, you know, as physical or sexual. And so, of course, those are with words. We also talk about visual abuse. So you visually abuse someone by sending inappropriate or explicit messages, or, you know, pictures. That would be visual abuse. And then we talk about harassment. So that's disrespectful behavior done in a sexual way, a sexual nature. We talk about sexting and cyberbullying. So those would be the main forms. It's physical, sexual, and then you have verbal and visual.
Wow, I'm just now like literally the visual part.
Yeah.
That I'm learning that tonight. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Like if you think about it, like pornography would be an example. If you make a child or someone watch pornography, and I know that this is like very explicit, but I just want to paint this. I hope I'm not like going in. Like,
no, we're transparent here. You good?
Okay, cool. Like, I hope I'm not giving too much, but yeah. So like, pornography would be an example. If you make a child watch pornography, that would be an example of visual abuse, visual sexual abuse, because you're making them watch something that's being done in a sexual nature, and you're forcing them to do it. Any type of activity that's forced is considered abuse.
Wow. That's really, really good to know. And I know a couple of years ago, I don't know if this would classify under abuse, but as you were talking, I was thinking about it. I had heard of this term called, like, I believe sexual coercion, where it's like you might be in a situation, maybe you're on a date as a young lady, and, you know, you're back at your place and the guy's there with you or whatever. And he doesn't say like, you must have sex with me. He doesn't necessarily force himself on you, but you kind of feel like that energy, and you kind of feel like that unspoken, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's time to do that. Yeah. And you could be in a compromising position. Maybe he brought you on the date, you know, maybe you're in a position where you need him in some way. And so now you feel like, well, if I don't do this, then something else might happen that's not savory or safe.
Yeah, and we actually talk about coercion. So coercion is basically any forced or you're making someone do something under force or pressure. So it's like you're forcing them to make a decision under pressure. That is a form of coercion. You're making them do something that they would not necessarily want to do. That is coercion. So it could be sexual, it could be physical. So that's something that we talk about too. Coercion is when you're forcing someone to do something and you're pressuring them to do it, and they really don't have any decision or say so on what they want to do because they're being forced to do it.
Yeah.
And then you also asked me about some signs of abuse that I wanted to make sure that I touch on. So and I kind of just jotted some of these down, but the main thing, and this really, before I even got into this field, this made so much sense. And then I started like, I love Lifetime movies, and now that it's my weakness. Like I love all of those, like Hometown Killer,
I know.
wife's weird life, husband's ex life, like all these weird Lifetime movies that are like the same. But a lot of this stuff that I'm learning about is in these movies. And what I learned, and this just like opened my eyes to so much, is that when it comes to abuse, it's about two things. And even with domestic violence, with sexual, with physical, with verbal, emotional, it's about two things. It's all about power and control. It's never about the person wanting to just have sex. It's not about the person wanting to hit someone. It's about them wanting to exert power and control over another individual. So it's not them just wanting to get something out of that person. They want to feel more powerful in the situation. They want to exert their control over a person. And so a lot of times people that do the abusing, they look for people that are vulnerable. They look for people that are easy targets, like children or elderly people, so that they can demonstrate that power and control. And so those would be like two main signs of abuse Another would be manipulation.
Mm.
So manipulation in a relationship or from another person is a form of abuse. Intimidation, so putting someone down, name calling, belittling them around people, making them feel less than, that's a form of abuse. And then, of course, like control and those unsafe touches versus confusing touches that I talked about would definitely be different signs of abuse.
Man, yeah. So when you list those things, it's like you realize how susceptible we are to abuse in our everyday lives and how common it can be, especially when you mention the emotional and verbal. I think a lot of times we don't talk about those enough
Yeah.
because it is so prevalent. And a lot of times, like I said, it can be seen as like, oh, they're just playing, or oh, they really care about me, or whatever the case may be. And so that actually leads me into one of my other questions. Do you feel like there are instances where we normalize abuse or potentially abusive behaviors as caring or acceptable in society?
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel like we do normalize it. And here's why. I feel like we say things like, well, that was done to them, so that's why they abuse, or that's all they seen growing up. So, we have to just, they didn't see anything better. So that's just who they are. But just because they didn't see anything better doesn't mean that they don't have an opportunity to change. And I think that's where we kind of have to stop normalizing or making them, or it could be twofold. So that could be one, but then two, if they come from a culture where that's all they see, then in their family or what they're exposed to, and they're exposed to it, normalizes it, they're going to think that it's okay to do that because that's all they've seen. So it's kind of twofold. Like, we put the blame on the person because that's all they've seen, but then also if that's all they've seen, then they think that that's normal. So it's kind of like normalized on both ends. But I definitely do think that we make excuses for why people do abusing or why they do what they do. And I think that it's sad, and it's something that should not be normalized, because it does have a huge effect on the lives of the people that are experiencing the abuse. But sadly, we've normalized it, and we've made it look, especially with movies, and entertainment. We see a lot of that. Okay, going back to the Lifetime movies, we see a lot of the abuse, and people that are seeing that, they see that power and control. And so they're like, well, dang, I want that, So they go and do what they're seeing because it makes them feel like, I'm in control, I'm powerful, so I'm doing what I've seen, or I'm doing this, if this is going to make me feel like more of a man or more of a woman, then I'm going to do it. Because at least I have power and I have that control. So I do feel like sometimes entertainment has a lot to do with that. Society definitely, and then your culture. If you grew up in an environment where it has been normalized, your grandfather did it, your father did it, your great grandfather did it, so you're like, well, if no one is breaking that curse, it's only going to be passed down to the next person and the next person. So that's what I do believe, that it is something that has been normalized, but it doesn't have to be. And that's why it takes things like what we're doing, prevention and awareness, to put an end and stop to this, and speak up and say, hey, this is not right. If we see something like this happening, that's the only way that we'll put an end to any kind of sexual violence or crimes like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even particularly when it comes to romantic relationships, normalizing controlling and extremely jealous type of behavior. So the interrogations, where were you, who were you with, when you gonna be back, how come you didn't answer my call? And sometimes that's seen as like, oh, they're so jealous and they care so much about me and this and that. But it's like, that's not okay. Like, that is abuse in and of itself, and it can definitely magnify into bigger problems. And so when you think about those things, it's like, yeah, like there's a lot of things that we see as endearing or caring, or if you don't have it, you almost kind of question. Because I know, like, when I was a teenager, that was a thing. Like, a lot of women would be like, dang, like, he ain't checking for me like that. Like, he's not worried about the fact that I've been gone all day and I didn't answer his call right away. Like, does he not care? And it's like, the fact that you see the abuse as a form of love and care is a problem. Like, and where it's almost expected.
Yeah, or if you hear people around you talking about it, it almost makes you feel like you're missing out. So you gotta go be with somebody to slap you, that's gonna slap you upside your head. Like I remember, and man, like peer pressure really is a thing, because I remember when I was in high school and I had friends who had lost their virginity and they were all talking about it and like flaunting it, like, and almost made you feel like something was wrong with you because you ain't losing. So now it's like I gotta pretend like I did or act like I'm interested in it just so that I don't look awkward or like look like the odd girl out. So I almost have to fit in and do something that I know is not right, but do it so that I can be accepted. And I feel like it could be the same way with abuse. Well, other people's boyfriends are manipulating and they're controlling and they're making it seem like, well, he just loves me, that's why he does that. Then it's like, well, dang, I want to feel that too. So I'm gonna go get with somebody who is, manipulative and controlling.
Yeah, and that's so true. Peer pressure. I know I was that girl in high school that I wouldn't say a late bloomer, but I definitely experienced a lot late. And so even just looking back, I'm like, yeah, there are some things that I wanted to have in my own life that were not cool, not safe, again, abusive, but because I heard other girls around me talking about it or whatever, I'm like, okay, like I want to partake in that, and they romanticize it. And it's like, no, that's not okay. So that's really good. And also, hey, Michelle and everyone coming in late, it's okay. We're, just in the thick of things. So also I wanted to ask, do you find, at least in your work, that there are more than one instances of abuse in one situation? Like, is that common?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things that I kind of want to talk about. And the first thing is that they all can be done at the same time. There are instances where one might get physical, sexual, verbal, visual, emotional. It just depends, because each case is a little bit different, or not case, but each scenario or each situation is different. There are times where all can happen all at once. So I guess it just depends on that individual, but just based off of like what I've witnessed thus far, and when kids have come to me to share things with me, it has always been like either or. So it's been like physical or sexual, or there might be a combination of like physical and verbal, where there's some physical abuse happening while also like some verbal abuse, like name calling, putting that person down, calling them stupid, crazy, you're not good enough, like you're dumb, like things like that. So there might be like, they could all definitely be happening at the same time, but just from what I've experienced, it's like one or the other.
Yeah. And that's good too. I think, I believe I realized that I was in some abusive situations when I got out of those situations, and like affirmation was foreign to me. Being encouraged was foreign to me. And so you almost are suspicious of it. Like, wait, why are you calling me beautiful so much? Why are you, like, why are you saying I'm smart? Like, this is weird. And then you realize, like, wow, okay, like, I didn't realize that I had normalized those things in my mind, and I was experiencing that maybe with some other things that traumatized me, and now having a state of trauma, brokenness, so on and so forth. Because maybe one might be a little bit more magnified in the situation than the other, like you said, or it might be transient. It's kind of happening at the same time. So it's hard to pinpoint. And then maybe you're just not aware of it because like, I'm just finding out about the visual abuse like tonight. So knowing those things, it's like, okay, now that you have the knowledge, now you can proper assess the various relationships in your life and pinpoint, okay, what is going on here? Is this safe? And honestly, would you say that gaslighting happens a lot? Like, let's say, someone recognizes, what, I'm in an abusive situation, and they go ahead and they're like, I got to break from this person. Do you find that maybe the abuse worsens after that, and there's like gaslighting and all that? Like, have you heard of anything like that?
Okay, so when you say gaslighting, I'm sorry, you got to break it down. I'm like, you got to break it all the way down for me. And then I'm like, I got you. So gaslighting, is that like explosion, like everything just explodes, or is that like help me understand?
So basically gaslighting is when like you have an issue, and I could be describing this like completely in layman's terms, but how I see it is you have an issue with somebody, you know, you bring it up, or there's a situation that you're going through, whether it's a life experience, whatever. And when you express that to somebody, they basically like, they like shame you for it, and they make it seem like what you're imagining or what you're saying is your imagination. Like it's not true, you know?
Yeah. So, and you're saying if they tell that person, like the person that's doing the abusing, or if they tell someone else about what the person that's doing the abusing?
Either one. So let's say it's like a young girl, maybe she's experiencing sexual abuse in the home, and she might tell the person that's doing the abusing to her, like, hey, I'm gonna tell my mom or my dad or whoever, and they gaslight her, and they're like, oh, well, if you do that, then this or that's gonna happen or whatever. And then maybe she goes and tells her parents, and they're like, oh, you know, there's no way so and so would do that. Like,
I got you. So here's the thing. The number one reason why people don't tell is because they don't think they'll be believed. And that's there at 90% of the time. There's the statistics are 90% of the time people can pinpoint, because we think that someone that does the abusing is like a stranger. It's someone that jumps out of a van, grabs you, and what we see in the movies, rape or sexual assault that happens like in an alley, or, you know, they jump out of bushes, they grab you. 90% of the time it happens with someone, the person can pinpoint exactly who has done the abusing. But of that 90%, only about 32% ever report being raped. And of that 32%, very few actually seek help. And the reason why they don't report is because, number one, there's this fear that no one's going to believe them. And then there's also this fear that they might get hurt again. So that's the two reasons why people don't speak up. Number one is, I don't think anyone's going to believe me, so I'm not going to say anything. And number two, I don't want this person to come back and either hurt me or my family. So you will have some instances where someone doesn't believe you and they say, oh, you're just making that up. And what we teach our students is that even if someone tells you they don't believe you, you go and find someone else. We call them trusted adults. And trusted adult is basically anyone that's over 18 that you trust, that you know, that can get you help. And if that person that you tell doesn't believe you, your job is to keep going to another person until someone finally says, hey, you know what? I believe you and I'm going to get you help. But a lot of times the reason why kids don't speak out is because they're afraid of not being believed. They're afraid that the person's going to hurt their family. If the abuse is happening with someone that's in the family or in the home, they're scared that they might be taken from the home or something might happen to that person. They may go to jail. And so they don't speak out and they don't say anything because they don't want it to affect anyone else, or they're scared of what might happen should they speak out. And so, yeah, they don't say anything because they don't, you know, think that no one will listen to them. You know, they don't report it because they don't think that nothing's going to be done. So they continue to get this abuse because they think that, well, no one's going to do anything about it, so I might as well just, you know, continue to allow this person to abuse me. And it's sad, but that's definitely a reason why people very rarely speak out about it, because they don't think anyone will listen.
Do you find that that's even harder for men to speak out about because they're supposed to be strong and nothing's supposed to get them?
Yeah, absolutely. So men, the reason why men a lot of times don't speak out is that embarrassment. I'm a man. And I thought this can happen to men. Like, it's a man. How can this happen to men? But there are statistics that prove that sexual assault, just like it's not gender specific. It's not based. It's not about a woman being assaulted by a man. It could happen both ways, just like with the offender. The offender could be both male and female. But when it comes to men, there's this stigma that I'm a man. I can't say anything about it. I'm embarrassed, you know, like, how's that going to make me look? So there's almost like this self-image that I have to protect because I am a man. And, you know, we mainly hear about this happening to women. So if I'm a man and I speak out about it, it's like that embarrassment, a little bit of shame, a little bit of, you know, fear, and just of what people are going to say and what they're going to think. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it when it does come to men. There's a lot of different emotions and feelings that they kind of have to battle with that stigma. Like, man, how did this happen to you? You're a man, you know?
That's so true. And feel free to ask any questions or add any comments in the comment and discussion as you're watching. But that's so true because I feel like as society, we very often over sexualize men. And it's not to say that they don't enjoy intercourse. Of course, we know this, but I feel like it's like, oh, you liked it. Like, no, you weren't assaulted. Like, you wanted that. How can you say you were assaulted? You probably enjoyed it. And so with all of that and all of these stereotypes and, societal norms, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is embarrassing. Like, I know a couple of years ago, Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club had come out and said that he had been sexually assaulted. I don't know how often, but I know it occurred more than once in his childhood, I think by a babysitter or something like that. And for years, he just did not understand what it was. When he finally understood what it was, he was embarrassed to say it. And then he said one of the effects of that was that he became over sexualized as an adult. And he started to treat women and other people as like objects, basically. Like, you're just here for my pleasure. And so that's also another thing too. Do you find that people become kind of like big people that are like they become over sexualized after sexual abuse?
It can happen. It definitely can happen where because something like this was done to them, that they go and become extra with sexual behaviors and things like that. Like, it definitely can happen, but again, it just depends on the person and what their experience was. But yeah, it most certainly can happen. We don't always just say like, well, just people do this, they'll assault or they'll abuse because the abuse was done to them. That's we say that it's a myth because that's not always the case. Because we always revert it back to those two things, power and control. But there are some instances where it has happened to them, so they do abuse, or it has happened to them, or it's something that they've seen growing up. So it's almost like learned behavior. Like, I'm only doing what I was taught. So again, it just depends. It differs for every situation, every scenario. But yeah, it definitely can be something that kind of turns into that for sure.
Got you. Yeah. So would you say that there's anything that the victims or survivors of abuse say that they received more of during their healing journey? Like, is there anything that they look back when you're having these discussions with them and they're like, man, like, I wish I received more of this, more support, more of a listening ear, or anything like that?
So I wish that I got into the weeds like that. Like, I promise you, I'm just in and out. Like, I'm just giving the presentation and I'm out. I wish that I would have would be able to get more into depth. I would love to have conversations with students who have been victims. But if I had to guess, I would say that it would probably be they wish they had someone that listened to them. Because a lot of times the kids that speak out in our presentations, and what we call that like a disclosure. So if I'm giving my presentation and a kid were to tell me that this was going on, by law I have to report that. But they probably never have felt comfortable enough to tell anyone about this. Number one, they probably did not know that this was what it was. Like, we had a kid that didn't even know that what he was experiencing was abuse until we broke it down in the presentation, until we showed the video and we talked about like, what it is. He's like, I didn't know that this was happening to me. Like, this was everything that this presentation talked about was what I was experiencing, and had no clue. So a lot of times they don't even know because no one's talking about it at home, or because no one's listening to them. And so probably for the first time, when they see this presentation and they tell one of the trainers, they probably feel like this is the first time since this has happened, if it's been a thing that has happened for a long time, that I finally felt comfortable enough to speak out. So if I had to guess, I would say that it would probably be they wish they had someone to listen to them.
Man, yeah, I can definitely see that. And, like you said earlier, it's hard to actually come out and say it. So, and then when you do say it and you're dismissed with it or whatever, like, that can make you shut down in and of itself. And that could just make it that much harder. So definitely agree with that. And also, there was one other thing I wanted to say, and I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. Okay. Oh, now I know what it is. Do you know of any, even if it's not with your work necessarily, but just in your observations, like what are some obstacles people might have when trying to leave an abusive situation?
Yeah, so we have this thing called a cycle of abuse. And we get into this really in high school. We have a presentation, I believe it's for 11th grade, and it's just on domestic violence. And we talk about the cycle of abuse. And our presentation is called See the Signs. So it's like how to pay attention to signs of domestic violence or domestic abuse. And there are 3 phases to this cycle. The first is the honeymoon phase. And so this is where there's like gifts, there might be compliments, like everything is peaches and cream. It's like almost like nothing is wrong. And then it moves from the honeymoon phase to the tension phase. And so the tension phase is where you might see intimidation, that belittling, that name calling. You might see some isolation. So one person that's doing the abusing doesn't want the other person to be around anyone else. They want that person all to themselves. There might be some verbal abuse there. And then it moves from the tension phase to the explosion phase. And the explosion phase is where that fighting happens, the physical abuse, maybe the sexual abuse happens, everything explodes. And then what happens is it goes back to that honeymoon phase. So after the explosion phase, it goes back to the gifts. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I promise you that I'm never going to do that again. And then it goes from the honeymoon to the tension phase. And then from the tension phase, it goes to the explosion phase. And the reason why they can't get out of that phase is because every time it gets to the explosion phase, that person knows how to get it right back to that honeymoon phase. And so now they have them trapped in this phase where they can't get out of it because they know they're going to always come back with those gifts and those compliments and those affirmations. And so there's just this never ending, ongoing cycle of abuse until that person finally says, okay, enough is enough. I don't need no more of your gifts, no more of your compliments. Like, I'm out. And so that's the reason why they remain stuck. It's like they don't know how to get out because they're stuck in this cycle. And the person has learned how to exert their power and control. They've learned how to manipulate them and keep them in this cycle because they've kind of got this thing mastered now.
So love bombing is essential for this to even work.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult because I know I've been a victim of love bombing. And after you go through it so many times, it's hard to discern who's genuine from who's not.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where do you find the balance between, okay, this person's actually just being nice and generous and kind versus they're love bombing me? Because you don't want to be guarded, but at the same time, you don't want to be so open to where you just keep going through that. So it's like, where is the line?
Yeah, I think it comes with time too. I think again, it just goes back to paying attention to the different signs, paying attention to, if you are having a disagreement, what's their tone, what's their body language, do they look like they're getting angry, or are they relaxed? What's their demeanor? Paying attention to what they're saying, if you are in a heated moment or if you are having a disagreement, what are the words that's coming out of their mouth? What are their actions? Is this something, that I continue to see? Does it, and you kind of almost have to use discernment. Like and I know that it's like the cliche thing to say, but you really have to like use discernment to know like if this is legit or if this is not. You got to pray and ask God to reveal to you by his Holy Spirit and say, Holy Spirit, show me if this is legit or not, because I don't want to get stuck in this cycle, or I don't want, if this is legit, I don't want my guard to be so up that I don't give this person an opportunity to really show me what true love looks like. So I think it comes down to just using discernment and paying attention to their motives, paying attention to their behavior, paying attention. And I remember when I was in a relationship in college, and I didn't think about this until later, that I was being verbally and emotionally abused. And I also paid attention to how he treated his mom. And that's how I knew something wasn't right. Because if you're okay with disrespecting your mom and calling her out her name and like calling her all this, and y'all don't have a tight relationship, then ain't no telling what you're gonna say to me. Like, I'm just a girl that you've been dating for 3 months and you don't know your mom your whole life. And so I didn't realize that it was control, it was manipulation, it was, if I didn't agree with something, it was he would get upset about it. So it was different things that I knew wasn't right. But I felt like this is what I had to settle for, because at the time I was broken, I was insecure, I just was looking for a relationship. So I didn't really know until I got older, and I look back retrospective and I said, man, like that was abuse. No, he wasn't slapping me upside my head. No, he wasn't shoving himself on me. No, he wasn't sexually abusing me, but emotionally and verbally, I was being abused. His words were tearing me down. I was being manipulated. I was being forced into doing something that I did not want to do, but I did it because I felt like I had to do it. There were times when he's like, if you love me, you'll do this. That's a form of manipulation and control. That's a form of emotional abuse. So I think it's about paying attention to their actions and their behavior, and just seeing how they treat other people. Do they have these bursts of outrage, with someone when things don't go their way? And my husband now, like, he has an excellent, like, how he treats his mom. Like, he's very respectful to his mom. He's very respectful. I mean, he's just a respectful individual. So I never was concerned about if he was going to be respectful to me, because I see how he, respects his mom and how he respects, his grandmother. So just paying attention to things like that, even when we would have, when we were dating and we would have little disagreements, like never call me out my name, never disrespected me, never verbally and emotionally abuse me. So it's paying attention, and not that we go out here like picking, like, let me see what you're gonna say.
Right.
We can't do that, ladies. Like, we can't just pick, to just see what he's gonna say. But we have to pay attention to what is his behavior like, or vice versa. Because remember, it's not just gender specific. So what is her behaviors like? Because women can be controlling, women can be manipulative, women could, be aggressive, women could be emotionally and verbally abusive, women can be physically abusive, right? So I think the biggest thing is just paying attention to what's happening, and just taking a step back, because we don't see what's happening in the picture while we're in the picture. We got to take a step back from the picture to really get a good glance at what's happening. And then we have to use our discernment and our judgment to say, do I need to stay in this, or do I need to leave? And we have to be okay with whatever decision that we make, and and just know that it's for the best if we choose to leave.
That's so true. And Michelle said that emotional abuse is real. It's hard, especially when you don't know that you're going through it. And, just like you said, you had that moment where you look back on your relationship and you realize, wow, I went through emotional and verbal abuse. Same here. Like, I literally, sometime earlier this year, I was going through my old messages on IG, and I came across old messages from an ex that I had dated in my early 20s, and we were kind of on and off for a while. And I was looking at the conversation, and I was like, I can't believe I sat here, endured this, and thought that it was love. Like, I literally was looking at it and I was disgusted and just so saddened, because it's like, for so many years, and then I had the flashbacks, and I was like, for so many years, I actually was a victim. And that wasn't the only relationship, sadly, of verbal and emotional abuse. That's very common in my past relationships, especially throughout my 20s. And there were some instances of potential physical abuse and sexual abuse as well. And it's really sad when you think about it, because like you said, I was broken in those seasons. And you always think, oh, that would never happen to me. I won't be that chick or whatever. But then you realize you were that chick, and you didn't even recognize it, and you had to go through your own healing journey. And I think that, especially in the Christian community, the term self-love can be seen as a bad thing a lot of the time, because it's like, oh, we don't need to love ourselves more and this and that. But it's like, self-love is so important for that reason. It's like, you have to get to a point where you see yourself as God sees you. You understand your worth, your value. And that's why, me being a single woman in my 30s now, I speak so heavily on this, because it's like, I had to go through those things. And it wasn't honestly until I got pregnant with my son, where I realized just how broken I was, and just how much I had allowed certain things to fester, to the point where now I was in this situation as an absentee father situation. So, but it's so important to go through that healing. And we all have that awakening at different moments. I know earlier you said that was in college for you. And for me, I would say it happened when I got pregnant with my son. That's when I was like, okay, like, this is too far gone at this point. There were a lot of things that I could have definitely avoided. But if you're open to it and you pray for that and you are willing to receive the discernment and the awakening from the Holy Spirit and stuff, then it can definitely change your life for sure. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I would just encourage you guys, male or woman, to go through that journey and just sit and because you could be in the thick of it right now, and you could be like, why do I keep going through this over and over again? Why do I keep dealing with this or that? And just you gotta be willing to have that moment and to go through that healing process. Because
and I think we all have that moment where it's almost like that breaking point moment where it's just like enough is enough. Like we all have, at some point, we're all gonna have that moment where it's like, I'm ready for more. I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to settle. I don't have to accept this. And I think that for me was like when I decided to like let go of alcohol and kind of begin my healing process. I was just like, enough is enough. I'm tired. And once you finally get to a place where like you're desperate enough for change, like that's when it's gonna happen. Like it's going to happen when your mind and your heart connect, because you could tell yourself all day, I'm ready for change. I'm going to get out of this relationship. But your heart's not connecting with your mind and you end up going right back. They say one thing to groom you in or send you one little sweet message and now you're back into it. Right? But you finally, your heart and your mind have to get to a place where they're in sync, where it's like, all right, we're ready. We're ready. Your heart has to be in this. Like you have to make this decision in your heart and say, okay, I'm ready to do what it takes to get rid of this thing or to walk away from this thing. And for me, that's what it was. My heart finally connected with what I wanted. And that was, number one, more of God, but I wanted to be better for myself. And I had to be willing to let that go, because I told myself, okay, after every time I would get drunk, like I'm done drinking. I ain't drinking no more. And then here I am back drinking.
Yep.
But that moment where my heart connected with my mind and I said, enough is enough. What do we have to do, God, to make this work? And that's when I saw change take place.
Yeah. And also too, healing is not all rainbows and butterflies. I feel like nowadays I feel like that term is romanticized now, where you're just like rainbows and sunflower fields, and it's like
I read something that said healing is like peeling an onion. It has so many layers to it, and it gets messy and it stings. If you think about when you're cutting an onion, man, your eyes be burning. It hurts sometimes. Sometimes you got to step away for a second and catch yourself. Splash some water. It gets messy. It gets dirty. It might stink a little bit. It might hurt. It might burn a little bit. You might not like it. It might be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to just sit there and cut up an onion while your eyes just burning. It might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And in order for me to get to the root of my issues or my decisions or my behavior, why do I keep going back to these abusive relationships? What's at the root? What am I looking for? In order for you to be able to get to the root of it, you have to be willing to peel those layers back. And sometimes you might be peeling. You might have started peeling last year and you still peeling. It's 2022 and we're moving on into 2023 and I'm still peeling. It's a process. No one will ever get to a place in their healing journey where they've arrived. Just like transformation, it's an ongoing process. It's not a one-stop shop. Every day you're healing from something. You might not be healing from something traumatic that happened in your past, but there may be an insecurity that you're healing from. So I may be healed from the brokenness that I experienced years ago, but there are still some insecurities that I'm healing from. There are still some words that I'm healing from. So regardless of who we are, we all have something that we have to heal and recover from. But it's not a one-stop shop. It's not a one and done. It's a ongoing process, just like transformation. But the beautiful thing about it is that every day, every step that we take, we're one step closer to being who we're supposed to be. And that's the beauty about healing, is that it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's not a race to let me see how quick you can be healed. Do this and you'll be healed in 5 months, or do this and you'll be healed in 2 weeks. Like that's not what this is. It's a journey. It's a process. So that's how I think of healing. It's like an onion. You have to peel those layers.
Yeah. And I also like what you said and emphasizing it's a journey, because that's something else too, that I feel like in the Christian faith, we can sometimes, not saying that the Holy Spirit can't do that, boom, like, you know, that viral moment, I'm delivered, that happened years ago. We're like, you know, you can have that I'm delivered moment and never go back or whatever. But I think more often than not, God's going to take you through that journey, and it's going to, that's with God and you and the Holy Spirit together, it's going to be a journey. And it's okay, like you said, if it doesn't happen in 5 months, or okay, how come so and so said that they don't deal with this anymore after 3 months and I'm 8 months in and I'm still, you know, like, just understand it's going to be a journey. And even if it's not that thing, I love that you said it's going to be something, because I'm in the same boat. I'm dealing with insecurities that I thought I conquered, and now I'm like, oh, we back here again, like, you know, like, still dealing with this.
There may be things that, like, you never thought that just show up, and you like, where did this come from?
Yeah,
exactly. And you have to deal with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe God is bringing it in front of you so that you deal with it. Maybe you never knew that it was there. It was always there. It was just hidden. Mm-hmm. But that's something that he does not want you to carry with you through the rest of your life. So it's like, I want you to deal with this so that this is not an extra weight that you're carrying to your next season. So I feel like there may be things that surface that we didn't know was there, but we have to deal with that so that we can truly just thrive and be who we're supposed to be without any limitations or anything keeping us back or holding us down. So
absolutely. And nothing beats a good support system too. I'm so grateful for my mom and sister, and just like the friends I have, and even some guys I've dated in the past that, you know, I shared certain things with them and they didn't take it to use, you know, to their advantage. And so there's always people that God will bring in the right times. You just have to have discernment, even because I was going to say that earlier too, about sharing. If you are an overcomer of abuse, having discernment of when to share certain things, because you don't want to come out too early, in my opinion, and just be like, boom, here it is, because that could be a lot for someone. And you just never know. So definitely pray and have discernment on that, on when to share. And also, like Taylor said earlier, discernment on not being too guarded, because for those coming in now at the tail end, we were just talking about the abuse cycle. And I was saying that love bombing is an essential part of it. And so with that in my life, I know I've had to kind of use discernment and not become so guarded to where it's like, oh, they're complimenting me, they're being generous, you're an abuser. Like, you know, like where you can just be like open, but have discernment. So just want to reiterate that. Michelle says she had her awakening moment after she had Joseph, which is her son. Same kind of thing as me. Hey, Layla, it's okay that you're late. Layla says healing is such a trying process. It's dark at first, but eventually gets better and you'll end up in the light. Exactly, right? And each step of the way, you're just getting better and closer to the person that you were destined to be. Thank you for joining, Yasmin. Thank you for the compliment. And I'm glad that you could join in. So we're going to go ahead and just wrap up. But before we wrap up, do you have any like closing words of encouragement, advice, insights, or anything to share with the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I'll say is that, and this is something that we teach, is that at the end of the day, you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to feel safe. And if you're ever in a situation, for those of you that are listening who may be victims or who may be survivors and have not shared anything, or if you know someone who is a victim who is experiencing this right now, whether it's sexual, physical, emotional, or verbal, they have the right to feel safe and protected and cared for. And the biggest thing that we teach is that what happened to you was never your fault. And I think a lot of times people that experience this think that, well, dang, there's some reason, like somehow I caused this. They put the blame on themselves. They think, well, maybe it was for, you know, victims of like sexual assault. Maybe it was something that I was wearing, you know, maybe I looked a certain way. And that's another myth, that, you know, you wore that shirt, so it made you a target for sexual assault. That's a myth, you know, and they think that they're the ones to blame. You know, maybe I did this to myself. And we always say that it's never the victim's fault. And so for those of you that might be in this space right now where you may be experiencing some form of abuse, understand that what you're experiencing is not your fault. It's never your fault, and you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything to deserve it, and you have the right to get out of the situation. And one thing that we teach is one way to get out is to tell someone that can get you help. If you don't feel comfortable telling yourself, maybe find a girlfriend or a sister or a cousin, someone that you can can talk to about this, that you know can help you and can say, well, you know what, like maybe I'll go with you to the police station, or I'll, you know, do whatever I can to help you to get the help and the support that you need. So just understand that even if you put yourself in a situation where, you know, you put yourself in harm's way, or you put yourself in a situation, understand that it's still never your fault. You have the right to feel safe, and it's never too late to tell. A lot of times people think that, well, because this happened to me like when I was 5, or this happened years ago, then it's too late. It's never too late. You know, whether it happened 5 years ago or 5 weeks ago or 5 days ago, it's still an okay time to speak out and to say something about it. At the end of the day, your safety is what's most important. And if you're ever in a situation that's unsafe, or that feels confusing, or that feels weird, you have the right to get out. And that's the way that you start and begin your healing journey, is by you speaking out, by you sharing your, you know, telling someone, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, or even a friend, or someone that can help you, or, you know, reach out to someone that can get you help, the help that you need. That's how you're going to begin your healing journey. But the only way for us to put an end to this is that we have to say something. We have to open up our mouth and say something. And there is someone out there that's going to believe you, that's going to listen and say, hey, you know what? I believe you. What happened to you is not your fault. And I'm here to do whatever I can to help you. Even if that's just to be a listening ear while you tell me what happened, I'm going to do everything I can to support you, because that's what I'm here for. And so, again, guys, you have the right to feel safe. You have the right to protect yourself. You don't have to settle. You don't have to accept abuse. You don't have to stay in abuse. You don't have to just succumb to it because you think that's all you'll be good enough to have. God has something so much greater out there for you. And settling is not one of them. He said, I'll do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever ask or think. So that means that I'm going to exceed your expectations. What you think that you're good enough to have, I'm going to go beyond that. And he would never put us in a situation to destroy us intentionally or to harm us. He wants the best for us. He wants the best for you. And you just have to get to a point where you're like, enough is enough. And that's where I got to that place. Once you get to that place where it's like enough is enough, then you'll begin to see that transformation take place in your life. And so I just pray that for those of you that might be in this type of situation, know that you have the right to get the help. Get some help. Get some help. Get out of it as best as you can. We tell our kids, I know it's like childish, but they understand it. Say no. We got 3 parts. Say no, get away, and tell a trusted adult. That's what you do. You say no to that person. I'm not going to take this. You know, I'm not going to stay in this. I'm not going to let you continue to abuse me. I'm not going to let you continue to walk over me. And I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to get away. If that means I'm going to block your number, I'm not going to give you that access to me anymore. I'm not going to come to your house. I'm not going to go here with you. And then tell someone who can get you help. If that's a police officer, if that's a family member, a friend, whoever, you guys have the right to feel safe. And you have the right to get help. And there's someone out there that will listen to you and get you the help that you need.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you so much for joining. Before I let you go, though, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. Shameless plug your life away right now. Let us know everything you got.
All right, check me out. Check me out. Okay, no, I'm kidding. That was just too ghetto. So Yasmin, she's like, that's ghetto.
We righteous and ratchet over here, so it's
ghetto. Okay, so y'all can follow me on Instagram at Taylor Brianne Thornton. So it's literally my first and last name. Just add Brianne in there, Brianne. Taylor Brianne Thornton. That's how you can follow me on Instagram. You can also follow my ministry page at Women Who Grow Live. And so that's how you'll be able to stay connected on like just any events. So we do like Wednesday morning prayer calls. Typically I lead them, but I have other like women to come on and lead them. We go live on Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central, and they've been absolutely amazing. And so every Wednesday, you just hop on there. I'm praying for you. I'm giving an encouraging word for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we're out of there. And that's just like your midweek fill up. So we do that on Wednesdays, and we have some more things coming in the pipeline. So that's how you can stay connected. by following Women Who Grow Live, and then also my page. And I also share just some encouragement on that platform as well. And then we have a Lighted Up Summit happening November 4th and 5th, and it is going to be absolutely amazing. So myself and Yasmin Williams-Woods are the co-hosts for the Lighted Up Virtual Summit. It's a virtual summit, and it's going to be happening November 4th and the 5th, 4th through the 5th, and it's jam-packed with so many women. We're going to have 3 different speakers, 2 different breakout sessions, and then we'll have a panel discussion. And really the focus is just helping women, once they've identified what their light is, how to take that light and share it in the world, how to walk in the light that God has called them to walk in, how to let their light shine for the kingdom. And so we're going to talk about all of that. And so if you want to be a part and you want to join us, if you want to just experience a move of God and you're ready to grow in your light and confidence and who God has called you to be, you need to be a part of it. And so you can go today to register and secure your ticket at bit.ly, and Yasmin's going to put it in there, bit.ly/Lighted Up Summit. That is bit.ly/Lighted Up Summit. And it's going to be amazing, y'all. It's November 4th and November 5th. So November 4th at, I believe, 7 p.m. Central to 9 p.m. And then November 5th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And so we've got so many amazing women that are going to be connected because we're about building the kingdom, y'all. That's it. That's our mandate, is to build the kingdom. And so please make sure that you stay connected with me. Shoot me a DM. I want to get a chance to know you. Let's connect. Let me know what you thought. If you have any further questions about, anything related to what I've talked about, I would love to answer as much as I can. And yeah, anything else, if you need me to pray for you, girl, you girl, I just need prayer. I got you. So that's all I got, Del.
Yes, y'all need to register. Make sure you register. Okay, bit.ly/ what was it? The slash
Lighted Up Summit.
Lighted Up Summit. So make sure you register, y'all. Hopefully you catch this in time to register. Is there a cutoff date for registration by any chance, or?
Not really. So just you have really up until November 4th.
Okay.
Yep. So you can register up until November 4th. So yep. Just go ahead and get your ticket. Secure your spot.
Yes, secure your spot. Yasmin said, it's going to be lit if she's doing something at night because she'd be super busy watching YouTube. So, exactly. So thank you so much, Taylor. Again, I'm sure this won't be the last time we collaborate in some way, shape, or form, but this was an enriching conversation, and I know it's going to bless others as much as it has blessed me and been insightful at the same time. So I appreciate you, and I'm praying nothing but God's blessings over everything that you do.
Amen. I receive it. Thank you so much, Del, for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go because you've been a trooper hanging in here. But have a good night, okay?
All right. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye, ladies.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for hanging in there. I know we went a little over tonight, but we love to just converse around here. So thank you for your commentary. If you have questions or anything, reach out to Taylor, or you can leave a comment and, I'm sure I could just shoot it over to her and she can get back with you guys. But make sure you register, okay? You got the virtual Lighted Up Summit, the Fire Summit. I'm probably butchering the name yet again, but y'all get the chance. Register. That's the bottom line. Register. Yasmin, if you're still in here, can you just type in the bit.ly real quick so I can flash across the screen? And also, if you're a Christian single woman in the ATL area or you don't mind traveling to the ATL area, join us on October 22nd. Again, don't forget to give this a big thumbs up, subscribe to all the Taylor stuff, follow, all of the things. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. I appreciate y'all, your compliments. Y'all are so sweet. I will be back next Thursday. Don't know with who yet. If anything, I might just share my story if I can't find someone to come and give a testimony, because there is a part of my story that I haven't shared with y'all. So if anything, it'll be that. But we'll be 9 p.m. Eastern next Thursday. And then the Thursday after that, remember, it'll be earlier. I think we agreed on 4 p.m. Eastern because that guest is in England. And so, she's 5 hours ahead. Don't want her to be up in the middle of the night to do a live stream. So make sure that you're here. subscribe to the channel, join the newsletter. That's when I send out reminders. And I will see you guys later. Have a good weekend, a safe weekend. And God bless y'all. See ya.